Hey everybody, welcome to Sid's Little Corner of the Internet. We've got another Transformers review coming your way. This time around we're going to be taking a look at the Transformers Legacy Deluxe-Class Autobot Elita-1. So as we always do, let's take a look at that packaging first. And we'll start up top. You've got Transformers Legacy. There's your big gaping hole. And here on the front you've got that really nice artwork of her alt mode, Elita-1. And she is a Deluxe-Class. Transformers up the side. You've got that nice artwork on the side. On the back, you have your product shots. She transforms in 14 steps. Parents. And then down here, you have some additional information, and you have your warnings. And you have, as always, the sad baby. Always good to see the sad baby. And over here, you've got some nice artwork in bot mode. And down low, you have some additional information if you choose to read it. So that is it for the packaging. Let's go ahead and see what came inside that box. Behold, laid out here before you is everything that came inside that box. And we'll start over here with your little sheet of warnings. Always good to have those. And then you have your sheet of instructions. Always helpful. So that leaves you with the two items that we see here. And yay for the fact that a deluxe class comes with more than one accessory. And double yay for the fact that this deluxe class comes with two unique, different accessories. So she comes with two guns. They're different. They're not the exact same thing of each other. So really cool. So let's go ahead and start with this one first. And start off with the fact that both of these are a really cool translucent blue. I really like that. Secondly, I want to point out that these things are just loaded with ports and blast effect compatibility. So you've got this little notch on the end that'll accept a blast effect. And then you have these ports right here that will also accept the blast effect. So you can have all kinds of fun. And from a sculpt work standpoint, this thing looks pretty cool. I think it may look better without having my hand behind it. But yeah, good sculpt work on this. I like that translucent blue. I like it very much. So that is gun number one. And then gun number two. It's the bigger gun. This thing looks like it could hurt somebody. So again, you've got all kinds of spots where you can use some blast effects on it. So really cool. Translucent, both sides are the same. Very, very cool. Now, a couple things that you can do with these guns is you can combine them because of those ports. So you can take them and just plug them into each other. And then she's got a big double gun that she can use. And you'll notice that the pegs underneath are offset. So this is actually by design to make sure that she can, when in the car mode, that one of these won't be trying to push into the vehicle where there's no hole. And secondly, in bot mode, she's got plenty of room for her fist to hang on to either the longer one or the shorter one without the other one getting in the way. So yeah, really cool. You can plug them in that way. You can plug them in this way. You can plug them in this way. So whatever configuration you want to use. So I really like the modularity that they have for these guns. I like the fact that they're different, and I like the way they look. So it's just a win all the way around. So that's it for everything that came inside the box, except for Elita-1 herself. So let's go ahead and bring her in for her close-up. Here she is, that female Autobot warrior that RC only wishes she could be. This is the Deluxe Class Elita-1. And I have to say that I really do like the way this figure looks. I like it in both modes. But I like her bot mode as well. Now, we'll talk about it a little bit here in Articulation, but I'm not the biggest fan of this right here. And typically, I will keep her in a different configuration than what is shown, but this is what's shown on the box and what's shown on the instructions. So, for now, I will leave it that way. But let's go ahead and bring her in for her close-up, and look at that head. And what a fine, fine head it is. I think it's very well done. The face looks good. I like her, whatever you want to call this. These almost look like goggles that she could pull down over her eyes. Her antenna look good. And she's got that nice Autobot logo on her chest. Good sculpt work all the way around. Everything looks good down through here. No, at least from the front, from this angle, no major hollow areas. Everything's covered up. Very well done. Even on the inside of the legs, they've got these panels that fold in right here. So ignoring this, which I will, it does a pretty fine job of hiding all of that hollow area in there. So pretty good job. And coming down to those feet. These feet annoy me in bot mode and they annoy me in vehicle mode, but they're not the worst thing ever. And coming around to the side. You've got that wheel, got a blast effect port. The thighs look pretty good. And coming up, looking up underneath, she's solid all the way through here. She's loose out her backpack, but that's okay. It's not really that big of a deal. Arms look good. Sculpt work on there looks just fine. All the way around. Even underneath, not bad. She's just got those blast effect ports under there. Fills in nicely under here. So yeah, I think she looks pretty good from the front. Now from the back, you know, it's a slightly different story, but you're not going to see your bots from the back too often. She doesn't look horrible by any means, but it's just kind of chunky up here, and then it looks kind of half-baked down here. But we'll take a look. So you've got her backpack and her faux head with her faux horns for her alt mode. And then at least these are filled in pretty nicely. They're not completely hollow, so they've given you a couple of ribs in here and decorated them up to look mechanical, so that's helpful. And then back here on the backs of those legs, it's not the worst thing ever. They just look slightly half-baked, like I said. Alright, so yeah, I think overall looks, I give this figure pretty high marks. It's not the best figure I've ever seen, but for Deluxe-Class, I think they've done a good job here, and there is some clever engineering that goes into this. So now we'll go ahead and we'll get into that articulation, and I'm going to start, instead of the head, I'm going to start with these up here, because as I mentioned, these I'm not the biggest fan of this configuration for her shoulder, pylon, fenders, whatever you want to call them. So you do have the ability to move those back and forth on that axis right there, and then you also have the ability to go ahead and get those out of your way, and I think this is probably going to be my preferred mode. Even though it does add to her backpack a little bit, it, in my opinion at least, it cleans her up in the front, and it does give her a little bit more clearance for her arms. Now you could also, you know, take these and just bring them completely back and do something like this to give you a little bit more clearance versus the down like that kind of mode. So that's totally up to you, but I'm probably going to be living right here. All right. So, moving on to the rest of the articulation, the head, you don't get a whole lot at the head here. You get some left and you get some right, and there's some wiggle in there, but there's not really any, there's not really any up or down. There's not really any quizzical. It's just left and right. That's really all you're going to get there. So it would have been nice to have a little bit more, but at least you can turn the head, so hey, there's that. Now, moving on to the shoulders, you can bring the shoulders up that far. You can go all the way around, full 360, just minding running into all this other stuff back here, and you will run into this as well. And then at the elbow, you get over 90 degrees. You do have bicep rotation, so you can take that all the way around. And then at the wrist, you have wrist rotation where you can go around. All right, coming down to the waist, you do get waist rotation, but keep in mind you're going to have to move this backpack out of the way. There's nothing to it. It's simply just a matter of lifting it up out of your way, and then you can take that waist whichever direction you want to go for as far as you want. Now, coming down here to the hips, this is where she lacks a little bit. I would have liked to have seen more here. I'm going to start with the thigh swivel first. So you can swivel the thigh out that much and swivel the thigh in that much. And depending on where you've got that thigh, that's going to be dependent on how much of a split you get here. So pulling that thigh out, you can get about that much of a split, which is really not a lot for today's figures. This is still going to be more than adequate. I mean, if you look at the overall split here, it's still pretty significant, but you're not going to get a full split, nor are you going to get a Van Damme or even close to it. So just something of note, in my opinion, I feel like these hip joints are just a little on the loose side. So I would have liked to have seen something a little stiffer there. They'll hold. It's not that big of a deal, but they're very easy to move. So those pins that they have in there for those splits, those worry me, especially over time. All right, and then as far as forward kick goes, again, wholly dependent on where you have that thigh. So if you spread that thigh out, you can get a nice forward kick of that far. And on the back, you're going to get about that much no matter what you do. So it's a little bit lacking in that back kick area. We already talked about that thigh rotation, and then coming down here to the knees, you're going to get 90 degrees at the knees, so plenty there. And down here at the feet, this is the other disappointment. The reason the feet annoy me is, number one, you don't get any up or down on the feet. And number two, although you get ankle tilt, the ankle tilt is all working on this joint right here. and you don't get any in between. So I'm going to pull it, and then it's notched. So that's your hard stop right there. So if you want to stand her up, you either get that much or you get that much. It's really hard to find that magic in between spot, and even when you do, she won't hold it. It just moves on its own. So once you get it past that hard stop right there, then you can flip them around, and then this is for the alt mode. But yeah, it's just kind of a pain to find that perfect spot. So if you want to give her a nice, I don't know, split action mode, something like that, you're going to struggle with those feet not having them completely flat on the ground. So just something worth noting there. So articulation is all right. It could be a little bit better, but it gets the job done. All right, so now that we've got details and articulation out of the way, what we will do is we will throw her. We'll not throw her. We're not going to throw her. Hey, don't worry. I'm not going to throw you. Sorry about that edit, guys. We're going to get some accessories on her, and we'll display her to you that way. So, yeah, this is happening. I think this is a good example of what you can do with Elita-1 and all those blast effect ports. And wow, limited pretty much only by your imagination. The one thing that I will say here, which is kind of a disappointment, is unless I'm missing it, I cannot find a 3mm flight stand port anywhere on her person. So unfortunately, you're not going to be able to get those airborne moves, if you will. But you do have those double ports on the bottom of the boot, or on the bottom of the foot. So you can get like a sweet rocket boot going there, and of course you can just load the weapons up with all kinds of stuff. This one's got room for 5 effects, and then of course she's got ports under her arms, she's got ports on her legs. You're just going to have all kinds of fun with her. I don't know what she's doing right here, but it really seems like she's in the middle of something really important, and I don't want to interrupt her. So, but going back to what I said about those loose joints earlier, you can tell here, obviously, she's going to be able to hold a pose for you. Just wish that those hip joints would have been just a little bit tighter, and I really would have preferred to have had a different foot configuration to give you that up and down, and to actually give you the ability to do some ankle tilt kind of a little more freely. But what we have here is still pretty good, and as you can see, you can get her into some great poses and have just an absolute blast with her with those 5mm ports. So, hope you enjoyed this, and now that we're done with that, let's go ahead and get her transformed. We'll get her in her alt mode, and we'll take a look at her from there. Well, I don't care what anybody else says. I like her alt mode. I think she looks really cool. She's kind of a little bit of a dune buggy kind of look to her. She is reminiscent, for those of you who are old enough to remember, and I'll see if I can throw a graphic up here on the video as well so you can see what I'm talking about. She reminds me of the Hanna-Barbera Speed Buggy. For those of you who remember the Saturday morning cartoons from many years ago, that's kind of what she reminds me of. She's not exactly like it, but she is reminiscent of it, just with those different size wheels and those headlights up here. So she kind of reminds me of Speed Buggy, and I maybe it's the nostalgia, but I really like her. So I think she's got some nice design cues here. I will say that the absolute worst part of her, much like the Earthrise and Siege Ratchet and Ironhide, are the feet just hanging on the back. But everything else, it flows, it works. She's cool, she's funky and cute, and I like it. So she does have a little bit of sculpt work there, you can see, and then you've got those little mirrors and nice sculpt work in that windshield. And as you can tell, she has blast effect ports just all over her vehicle mode that you can take advantage of, and she's got 4 of them back here on those feet. So say what you will about the feet, but this works. Also, something to note, no mushroom pegs. Those wheels look really good. So very happy about that. So let's go ahead and take her off there real quick and just get a couple of quick close-ups here, and we can take a look at her from the top. So this is her faux head, and then if you look up underneath, you have a whole lot of yogaed Elita-1, much like with the War for Cybertron Siege or Earthrise molds. Just a lot of yoga going on under there. So she is a bit of a shell former, but it works. I like it. Cool little headlights, and then those ugly feet that at least you can make rockets out of them. So yeah, there you go. So what we'll do now is I'll throw some effects on her, and you can get an idea of what you can do with her in this mode. And boom, there you go. You can do some things with Elita-1 in her vehicle mode with those blast effects. I mean, almost what can't you do? And I absolutely love these quad rockets back here. The way I have it configured, kind of your regular combustion going on down here, and then maybe some nitrous up top. However you want to think about it, whatever you want to do. I mean, hey, it's your toy. So, but yeah, just every direction, and even the little horns up top. You get just enough grip. You can actually pull it off with some blast effects. So just all kinds of fun to be had here. I'm really enjoying her alt mode. I really like it. So now that we've got that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into those comparisons, and we'll see how she looks compared to some other vehicles out there. Hey, before we get into those comparisons, I don't want to forget to talk about the weapon storage in her vehicle mode. And per the instructions, I'm not a big fan of what they're doing here, but I will show you what they put in the instructions here. So you take the 2 guns, and as you know, you have those ports and posts all over the guns. So you plug those guns together until you have something along these lines. And then what they want you to do is they want you to take her little faux horns off, and then they want you to plug the gun in. And I gotta tell you, I'm not the biggest fan of that. Now it works because of the alignment between the post and the port up here gives you a little bit of room for this, but I'm not a fan. I don't like it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these apart, and I'm going to store them on either side, because hey, you have the port availability, so why not, plug one in and plug one in, and then you can put the little horns back on, and that way they don't get lost. So there you go. That is your weapon storage. It's inelegant, but it functions. And I still think this configuration is better than what they have in the instructions. So now let's go ahead and get into those comparisons. For our first alt mode comparison, I figured since Elita-1 was a bit of a fast car, buggy kind of thing, that I would use kind of the fast car theme here. So for that G1 representation, this is my G1 Sunstreaker in all of his beat up, well-loved glory. Moving on to our next comparison, this is another lady fast car. This is Shatter from the Studio Series line, as we saw her in that 2018 Bumblebee movie. Taking a break from the fast car theme here, thought we'd bring in a potential alleged romantic interest. So this is the Transformers Generations Orion packs. And for our final alt mode comparison, I figured it would make the most sense to bring in another Elita-1. So this is Elita-1 as we saw her in the Transformers War for Cybertron line. And although they're completely different car modes, they do have one thing in common here, and that is they are both heavy on the Elita-1 yoga. So there you go. That's going to do it for the alt mode comparisons. So let's get Elita-1 transformed back into her bot mode, and we'll do some comparisons there. For our first bot mode comparison, here we see Elita-1 next to my G1 Sunstreaker. Next up is the Studio Series Shatter, as we saw her from that 2018 Bumblebee movie. Oh goodness, don't these two just make an adorable couple? This is the Transformers Generations Orion packs. And for our final bot mode comparison, it's Elita-1 next to Elita-1. So, of course, the legacy on the left and on the right is that War for Cybertron Elita-1 with that huge backpack. Alright, that's it for the bot mode comparisons, so let's go ahead and get into those final thoughts. So let's talk about the Transformers Legacy Deluxe-Class Elita-1. I think in short that this is a good figure, something that you're going to want to pick up. She's a new mold, and I think that this is a well done figure for a character that we don't see anywhere near as much as some of the other figures in the Transformers universe. So I think this is going to be something that's easily worth picking up. But let's go ahead and jump into the numbers a little bit and quantifier. We'll start with the aesthetics, the overall look. I know that people are going to have opinions. I understand that those opinions are probably not going to match up with mine, and that's okay, but I really like the way this figure looks. I like the way she looks in her bot mode. I like the way she looks in her alt mode. The two major complaints that I have for the overall look for the figure in her bot mode, or number one would be in her bot mode, are these shoulder pylons up here, aka her front fenders and wheels. I would have liked to have seen them do something a little bit different with those than what we have, and I think I probably am going to change the angle on these when I put her on my shelf and try to make them a little more subtle. May add to the backpack a little bit, but I think it'll give her a more streamlined look. And then when you get her into her car mode, her alt mode, everything looks good there until you get to the back, and then she gets a really bad case of the iron hide / ratchet, big old feet dangling off the back of the vehicle. Man, would have liked to have seen them do something a little bit different or a little bit better there. Don't get me wrong, it's nice having the feet back there with those 4 ports, and you can throw some blast effects on, and she looks like a rocket car, and that's cool. But that's a compromise. I would have liked to have seen those feet disappear completely. As it stands right now, it takes away from the car mode a little bit. But for the most part, I like her in both modes. I'm going to give her an 8 out of 10 for overall aesthetics. Moving on to the articulation, you're going to be able to get her into some poses. You're going to be able to do the things you want to do with her, but she does have a few limitations, particularly starting up top with that head. You're not going to be able to get any up or down or quizzical head tilt kind of looks. You're going to be able to turn the head to the left, turn the head to the right. That's really about it. As far as the legs go, when you get down to the splits, they're limited. I mean, you're still going to be able to do enough of a leg split here to get some nice action poses, but you're not going to be able to do a full Van Damme with those at all. Same goes with the rear kick. You're not going to get a lot of rear kick on her. More often than not, that's not going to be detrimental, but it is something worth noting. And then when you get down to those feet, I would have liked to have seen something more than what we had. We have ankle tilt. That's great, but I would have liked to have seen some up and down motion in those feet, so you could, maybe do some kneeling poses, superhero style poses, that kind of stuff. But as it stands, you just have the ankle tilt there. So you'll still be able to get her into some poses, but you will have to compromise in places. I'm going to give her a 7 out of 10 on articulation. Moving on to the accessories. I'm going to rate her pretty high here on the accessories because lately with Transformers figures, particularly the Deluxe-Class and the Voyager-Class, it's been really disappointing on accessories, and finally she breaks the proverbial and literal mold, I suppose. Not only do you get 2 guns with Elita-1, but you get 2 guns that are unique, so they're different from each other, and they are loaded, absolutely loaded, with blast effect ports and blast effect capability. And they're this really cool translucent blue, which I totally dig. So I think they've finally knocked it out of the park as far as accessories go for a Deluxe-Class figure, so I'm going to give her a 9 out of 10. Moving on to quality. Nothing major to complain about here. The paint apps look good. Sculpt work looks good. She came with everything that she was supposed to. Almost all of the joints are nice and tight. About the biggest things that I could say is the fact that her hip joints, the joints that account for doing the splits, those pins are just a little bit on the loose side. Not enough that she's not going to hold a pose, but I think over time they're going to be a concern. And then when you have her in the car mode, there's really nothing holding those feet firmly against the back of the car, so they do flop around a little bit, and that's kind of disappointing. But everything else is great on this figure, so I'm going to give her an 8 out of 10. So moving on to our last bullet, which is overall value. I will tell you that this is a pre-order that I ordered from Big Bad Toy Store. She showed up way earlier than what I thought she was going to show up, which I guess that's a good thing. So I just simply wasn't expecting her. But the price that I paid on Big Bad Toy Store is a little bit more than you're probably going to pay if you find her at a Target or a local retail outlet. So I picked this figure up at BigBadToyStore.com for $26 US. I think once you see her on the shelves in a retail store, you're probably going to be at the $22, $23, $24 US mark. And I think that's right on par for what you get here. I didn't mind paying the $26 whatsoever. She turned out to be an absolutely great figure, so I do think she's worth it, and I do think the value's there, but I think the value is going to be there even more for a few dollars less. So that being said, I'm going to give her an 8 out of 10 on overall value. I think for a Deluxe-Class figure, they finally did something really good this time around. So that is going to bring us to our grand total out of a possible 50 points. The Transformers Legacy Elita-1 gets 40 out of 50, which puts her at 80%. She's going to be an easy recommend from me simply for the fact that this is a mold that we haven't seen before. This is a character that we don't get a lot of. I'm talking to you, Bumblebee. And she just looks good. And her accessories are great. The transformation is fun. It's not complex whatsoever. Everything is intuitive on her, and she's just a blast to play with. So with that, that's going to wrap up the review. I hope you guys got some good information out of this. I hope that you found some entertainment as well. And if you haven't already done so, please be sure to hit that like button. Be sure to subscribe. And if you feel like it, leave us some comments. Let us know what you think about this figure or about life in general. So until we see you guys in the next one, take care.